Oh, and welcome to another episode of Breakaway with Dawn and Friends. Today, Claudia and I are going to discuss mental health.
Yes, hi Don. Nice to see you again.
Hi. Thank you. Nice to see you. As a pleasure always. Um, I wanted to talk about this because, it's very important. And I think a lot of people have shame possibly around it, don't know how to deal with these things, don't have the tools or the resources. So, since I have direct access to a great licensed marriage and family therapist, I thought I'd take advantage of that and have this conversation.
Sure, that sounds great, Don. Thank you for having me. I'm glad we're here and we can openly talk about this because I think awareness is key to many things. Yeah,
Yes, 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 yes. So, I think we'll start off with I will say, just preface the conversation, um, it's not something that I can relate to per se. Like, I mean, we all have good and bad days and stuff, but I've always been fortunate to be strong minded and, come over, what's the word?
overcome. Hmm.
Overcome, thank you. Overcome things or compartmentalize, and I think that's just something that I was able to do from a young age, and that's like going into protective mode, right? So I think that's something I was able to develop early on in life, right? So I can sympathize and have compassion for those
Hmm.
that struggle, but I will be honest, I can't always relate, right? But I can tell
Hmm.
you what I've done in that sense. But um, so for me, I just have that can do attitude. And
Right.
again, I mean, I don't know if this is related. I can only speak on my experience and my feelings, right? So
Sure.
um, when I was talking this week to some people here and there, random stuff, I think mental health for me just kept coming up. So this is why I feel the urge to let's talk about this because I would like to provide through you some either tips, resources, and stuff for them. Right. So, like for instance, for someone that's having a bad day and they can't get out of bed, you know, where would we start with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question, Don. So a lot of things that I would look out for if I was treating this person individually is really trying to dig and find out more what's underneath that difficulty where the person is lacking motivation, right? Where they don't
Mm,
have the motivation or the desire or even the physical ability to get themselves out of bed, like physically your body when you are going through, I'm not example,
mhm,
going through a depressive state, and it takes a toll on your mind, it takes a toll on your emotional health and your physical health. So when the person is stating, I have a hard time getting out of bed, or I have a hard time brushing my teeth, I have a hard time getting ready, let alone have a conversation with people or go to work. And so I would start with that is, okay, let's figure out what are the contributing factors that are potentially attributing to these feelings, these the sense of lack of motivation.
mhm,
So I'd kind of start from there, allowing the opportunity for the person to have a safe space, right? Because
mhm.
as we know, Don, it can be very difficult to be vulnerable and share
Yes,
what you're
yes.
feeling, right? A lot of times when we don't share is not because we're not strong-willed, but more so because that's how we've coped, that's how we've managed to keep to ourselves, right? We might rather not share than overshare or not share at all, and that makes it very difficult. So then what happens, your body will feed off of that. Your body will physically start to
Mm.
feel overwhelmed and not be able to express it. And guess what? Body reacts when the mind is reacting with it. So it goes hand in hand, if that makes sense.
That it does, and that's interesting. And hopefully, I don't take this conversation left. But one thing I do want to say is, for me, I know that when I was young, like I've been working since I was 12. Okay, so I was selling candy door to door. It was a real job. I made good money. I was persistent,
Mhm.
but I did that because that was my escape from my environment. What I never did realize is for a good 20 years, I maintained working two jobs. And I went to school, by the way. Um, and I went out every weekend. Like I lived a full life.
Right.
And people would always ask, why do you do that? And it took me so many years to realize. And I'm telling you, like 2 or 3 years ago, I realized, oh
Right.
my God, I did that all these years because it was me removing myself from an environment where I had no control, putting myself in a position where I do have control. Like, because at work, I'm Dawn, I'm who I want to be. Like, it was like, my
Right.
environment per se, right? And so I distracted myself in a way. So I didn't necessarily deal with things, or
Mhm.
whatever. But I know that that's what I did to cope. And then I just conditioned myself that way. And then when I realized that, I said, okay, I need to stop because I do have a family. And it was just like, again, I was conditioned that way. So that's what I did. And then once I realized that, I did break that chain, and I don't, granted, I'm trying to pursue a business right now, but
Right.
it's not like a full-time job, and I'm
Right.
I'm trying to remove myself and distract myself from something. But
Sure.
yeah, that's
That,
interesting. So
that's
I
that's a great example. Sorry to interrupt you. That's a great
good. No,
example
thank
of
you.
how you coped with that. Your
Mhm,
cope and your escape was to get yourself out of that environment and do something, like you said, distract yourself, right? So just as that was your coping mechanism at that
mhm,
time, you have people on the opposite of that who they cope but not being able to their way of coping is I don't have the energy. I will shut down. I will keep to myself. I won't open up. Distract themselves in other ways by resorting maybe to other habits, right? That are
mhm.
just habit
Oh,
forming things that
true.
we resort to
Mhm,
cope, right? So this is where potentially some substance use might come in, or some
mm,
other behaviors that are very detrimental to our health. And so and it's interesting because I guess a bigger question is where does that is one better than the other? No, because
no.
right? Because it could depend on the individual, right? And I like that you voiced or you're saying and you're very transparent about how you felt. And it took you up until 3 years to realize this is
Mhm,
how I was coping, right? This is
mhm.
how I
Yep.
kept to myself, then realizing, okay, wait, I have a family. Maybe I don't need to work 60, 70 hours and maybe
Mhm.
spend my time in other ways, right? But
Yeah.
it took the time that it took, and not that it takes everybody that long, and not that it was right or wrong in the amount of
Right,
time.
right.
Is you meeting yourself where you were at that moment, what you needed to realize at that time, right?
Yes, but can I say I would like to say it's because I challenged myself, and I wanted to know why. And then I just remember 3 years ago, whenever it was, they're
Mhm.
asking me, and I'm like, oh my God, like I never realized that's why I did that. But it's
Right.
because I was open as well to
Yes.
find that out, right? So you have to be open, right? Um, for me, like I said, it is hard for me to understand, like, wow, like really it's hard to get out of bed, like not in a criticizing way, but
Right.
I just think that, and I'm not the professional, you'll have to tell me, but I'm all about shifting the mind.
Hmm.
And so you have to have intention, right? So I feel that before your feet hit the ground, you really should set your intentions for the day and
Hmm.
start small. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything grand, but if someone, you did say find a happy place, but like, how can they even begin to get there? I guess because and I'm asking this because I don't struggle with this. So I don't know if I can put myself there. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. It sounds like you're trying to understand, right? How do you help someone or
Yes,
support someone through this process?
yes,
I know mindset is everything, right? Mindset, if you shift it in a different way, then it changes your perspective.
right.
But a lot of times when people have a perspective that is hard to oversee or see something more than, as a grass greener on the other side, really is it? I don't know that I can see that. I think a lot of times with life coaching and
Hmm.
for life coaching or therapeutic services is where you start to recognize that something in me wants more for me, that this isn't working for me necessarily, that I need to do more for me, right? And how do I do that? Well, by seeking a mentor, by seeking a life coach, by seeking a therapist to bring awareness to my mental health needs, because that And then that's when you start working with the individual and helping them shift that mindset. So there's, therapeutically, there's a lot of layers that could go under that, which is a bit different potentially with life coaching, right? But either one, you're still exploring
Mhm.
and you're still trying to help them shift their mind. But a lot of times when
Yes.
people are so embedded in that, let's say, depression or the anxiety, it takes a lot of work. But the person does have to somewhat come ready and say, you know what, I need to see something different in me so that I can feel better about me.
I love that. And for the record, I did not ask her to plug life coaching. That was at her free will. um, I like to lighten things up when they get to,
Mhm.
one thing I can tell you for me, and I find myself, I'm a very routine person. And I remember when I was a young teenager, when I was a teenager,
Mhm.
uh, it's funny. That's one thing my dad pointed out that I didn't realize about me. And I remember him one day saying, "You are so routine." I'm like, "So? Like, what's wrong with that?" Right? And he's like, "No." He's like, "If you get thrown off your routine, you're not going to know what to do." He's like, "I don't like that." So you guys, he would intentionally throw me off my routine, and I had to like think on my toes, think on my feet, and to be honest with you, I appreciate that now because
Sure.
I very much thrive on my toes and under pressure. And I remember just the things that would aggravate me the way he was. It really blossomed for me. You know what I mean? But um, I just remember him saying that, and I didn't realize I'm still that way for the record.
Mhm.
Not to say that I'm not spontaneous, but
Right.
what I was going to say is so during the week working
Sure.
and trust me, having to juggle two jobs, a family, school, all the things that I did, I had to have structure and routine in order to even allow that to work, right? So I find that on days, it's so funny when I have nothing but time, I don't spend it well.
Mm.
And so I know that because I've conditioned myself to be on a time limit and to back to back to back, right? So um I've had to on the weekends or days off or things. I have to somewhat keep that routine, which is get up, take a shower. Like I really, if I don't do those things, if I don't get up and do those things initially, I
Right.
notice my day won't be productive,
Mm.
right? So then I do have to be mindful of that. And if I want like my Saturday to be productive, then I
Right.
need to get my butt up in the morning, my usual time, take that shower, just get my blood moving, get going, and then I'm good. I don't like to sleep in for that reason. And two, my name is not Dawn for nothing, break of day, you know. I am naturally up, but I can be up and not get out of bed, to be honest with you. But I would suggest, find what works for you. Like, there has to be, it's hard for me to believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong. It's hard for me to believe that someone doesn't have something that they can dig deep and find that, okay, I know that if I do this, this would be the outcome. And I know, so for me, it's literally getting up and taking that shower and just getting going for the day. And that gets me going. If I don't get up out of bed initially in the morning, I can tell you right now,
Mhm.
like if I turn on that TV or open that phone, it's not going to be a productive day, So I try not to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're suggesting that for you, what works is the consistency, right? Is you have something
Mhm.
to look forward to every day. And that if I
Mhm.
I need to do steps 1, 2, and 3 in order to feel productive for that day. So people who in my line of work, when we see that, or I see that where the person is really struggling, is we kind of mirror the same thing. I'll suggest, okay, let's think of something that you look forward to on that given day, right? Give it at
Mhm.
least for today. We're not thinking about tomorrow or the next week, but what can work with you for you today. If it's pick up, the journal where you're writing something that's going to help you release. If it's getting out and, stretching, the first thing you do before even brushing your teeth, if that helps you.
Mhm. Mhm.
But really trying to find a way to ground yourself to help you say, you know what, at the very least, I look forward to my stretching routine this morning to get me by, or do a journal entry, or, do some deep breathing if I have to, if it's, for a minute and a half or whatever. But I think you're right. I think setting the intention for your day is definitely going to help you get past that and say, you know what?
Mhm.
Okay, that I've done that 3 days in a row. I'm on a roll here. I could do this. So guess what? I'm going to add another day to that. Right.
Yes, yeah.
Hmm.
I also think, you just said something that's sparked a thought for me, but, I think, music,
Hmm.
can help shift
Your mindset.
your mood. Yes, you
Hmm.
know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, so you do have to be mindful of what you do listen to, but I do think, a lot of times, like, especially when I'm cleaning, I like to either listen to an audible, a
Hmm.
certain type of book, or, I put on music, and that helps me not think of the task itself, but just
Right.
it gets me going. So I think that's something too that, one can think about, to help shift their mood and get them moving.
Right. And you know, the other thing too, I know that works, and I've heard people say this, and actually there is research to back up this comment that I'm going to make or suggestion, is they suggest that us, try to take at least the first 30 minutes of waking up is literally getting some vitamin D and really going outside, even if it's to your balcony, if it's to your driveway, if it's to, if you can't take the quick 5-minute brisk walk, but allowing yourself, your body to feel and get some vitamin D in your system, because that gets the circadian rhythms going and it helps you. And in fact, it will kind of set the tone for your day. And if you think about it, how many of us leave the house, we're rushing in the morning, let's say, or not,
Mhm.
but you get in the car and you're driving to your destination and you get the opportunity to witness the beautiful sunrises that we have sometimes, or even the sun is, nice and shining if it's 9 or 10
Mhm.
a.m. You really, it does something to you. It really shifts your mood and thinking, wow, this is such a beautiful day, or I get to see, the clear skies, or but
Mhm.
it really shifts your mood. And there's valid research that supports that, where you should expose yourself to the sun the first 30 minutes.
Okay, I'm laughing, and I'm gonna be so bad to share this, but I'm gonna share it.
Okay.
I've told you before, reality TV is my guilty pleasure,
Okay.
and I was watching a show. I kid you not. The girl has some kinda life coach come in. I don't remember, you guys, what it was for, but she comes in, they talk, they go outside, Claudia, and she literally tells her, "Wear a dress, something flowy, don't have underwear on," and she literally tells her to have the sunlight hit her butthole. I swear to God, there's research on this. I'm laughing because I'm trying not to botch this, okay? But there is scientific proof that there's a benefit to having sun hit you where the sun don't shine. Like there's
Yeah, literally where the sun don't shine.
it really helps you. Did you know that?
I think you shared this with me. I feel like we've had this conversation
I'm
before.
sure. Let me tell you, I recorded the episode, those few minutes, and I
Okay.
sent it to a few people because they thought I was crazy. I'm like, you guys, she said it like oh
Yeah.
my God. But I remember looking it up, and there's truth to it.
Yes. See, so that goes hand in hand with allowing yourself to immerse in sun the first 30
Yes.
minutes of to start.
So you
It's
have a patio, you have a backyard, a private area.
right, right. Whatever works for you.
Let the sun hit it where the sun don't normally shine. But please know this. I hope no one minds that's listening. I do like to lighten it up, and I'm
Mhm.
not being funny here. I'm not making fun of anything. I love to give suggestions and bring that joy into your life. So please do not misunderstand where I'm taking the conversation and
Right.
my laughter. I feel we do have to laugh more in life. It lowers your blood pressure. It keeps you
Mhm. It
keeps
really
you
does.
happy. So right. So I really hope when you listen to this, you enjoy this because that
Yes.
is the point of this. Okay. So it is life unfiltered, and this is unfiltered. And I just don't want it all to be too deep and heavy. So this is
Mhm.
why, if you don't mind,
Mhm.
Claudia,
No,
I
not
bring
at
this up. But yes.
all. Oh,
Okay.
goodness. Okay.
Um, so we kind of talked about, like, obviously shifting the mind, right? Like where else we can, what else they can do.
Mhm.
Um, but I do wonder, like, I feel that there could be triggers too, right? So like if someone is not able to, because I think therapy is a luxury, right? And we're not all able to possibly have that. And even if it's hard. I think it's hard to find a therapist right now. So I know people are waiting to get in and, to get services. So, I is there like any books or resources you think you can suggest that they can while waiting, or if they're not able to have the luxury of it? Is
Yeah,
there
well,
anything?
I think there's definitely a lot of self help books that one can find. I know that depending on what you're looking for, right? So if you're looking for having maybe more confidence, there's one book that I always recommend, Unstoppable Confidence. I can't think of the author right now. I apologize, but the other one, there's a lot of podcasts that I like to
Oh
recommend
yes.
as well. Not to take away from yours, but there's a lot on mental health, I should say, specifically on self help, right? So I always suggest to listen to motivational speakers, which are very helpful. I like to follow Jay Shetty a lot. Jay Shetty
Oh,
from
yes, he's great.
He's he's amazing. He has a number of episodes that he talks about all about success and how to love yourself more and how
Mhm.
to motivate and all that. And then there's this other one that this might be a little bit heavy, but um, the body keeps score, which it focuses on
Ooh.
trauma. And if you've ever endured trauma, it talks about how the body keeps score of that. That's an excellent read as well. And then a couple of relationship books, like the Seven Laws of a Happy Marriage is another one. So
Ooh.
again, it depends, right, on what you're looking for. But I would really recommend that maybe your audience, Don and friends, would consider just you could literally Google anything self help related. And maybe next time I can definitely provide like a
Oh,
specific
yeah,
list.
sorry, I did put her on the spot.
Oh,
And
you're fine.
just for you guys that don't know, these are true conversations between Claudia and I. We don't really prep before. There's no questions, that I have intend on asking her. It really is meant to just be a conversation between two friends, with the hopes of uplifting, encouraging, inspiring others to, break away from what no longer serves them and find that joy. So please do understand that. For me, I like to always remind people of their surroundings, whether it's like in your home, like to declutter. Because believe it or not, and I don't know where I read or heard this. And oh, you know who taught me? My daughter. I feel if you're open minded, your kids can really teach you, right? And one day I go into her room and I'm like, oh my God, what is it with you in this room? It's always a mess. And I remember one time her going away, I cleaned it and I come back and she's like, looks nice, but I don't like it. The next day I wake up and it's back to BMS. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, this gives me comfort. These objects, these things like give me emotional like I'm like, what? Like, and again, remember, I can't relate to that because I like order. I like things needy and
Right.
tight and my mind's not like that. And so I remember telling that to maybe you or somebody, and they said, "Well, that's because that's what's like their mind. Like their mind is what is the word? Chaotic or what is it? Like
Oh,
their mind is
just a little unorganized, if you will.
yes, thank you. So then their space is that way. So they do
Mhm.
say that like whether it's your car, your person, your room, it
Sure.
really does tell you like what's going on up there. And
Absolutely.
so, right?
It's
So
always chaos for them. And that's
yes, and
for
that's
them.
so crazy, and I never
Mhm.
knew that. And so,
Yeah.
I do think that I would suggest decluttering, and I know that can be hard for some, but I think, like Claudia said earlier, finding that safe space, and that safe space should be free, of clutter. But I would, why don't you start in that room that, like if you can't come out your room, you can't get out the bed, I would, maybe declutter your space,
Mhm.
be mindful of who you have around you. You don't want relationships or people that are sucking the life and energy from you or bringing you to that dark place, like, and we kind of talked about this in Is Blood Thicker Than Water? Like, just
Mhm.
because they're family or people you've known for a long time, if it's not a healthy relationship, it's not healthy,
Right,
right?
right. And
Like,
coming to terms with that, I think, right? It
mhm.
eventually, if you do, you realize, okay, these are the people in my life. Are they giving more than that what they're taking? I don't feel comfortable. If you know something's not sitting or resonating well with you, then you have to be able to release that at some point in your life, right? It's
Mhm.
decluttering not only of, let's say, your physical uh, environment, but maybe relationships as well, right? That's going to shift your mindset a lot, because we all have potentially people who suck the
Yes.
life out of us, who it's so
Yes.
draining, right? Emotionally draining to have
Mhm,
people
mhm.
around you like that.
And you have
Um,
to recognize that, right? Yeah.
right. And it takes time. It takes time to do
Mhm,
so, right?
mhm.
You can't go off and cut people off and without realizing why you're doing it, and doing it based on impulsivity, because that doesn't work either, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I do have a question to shift it a little bit. Like, considering how I am, and I know you know me more than most people listening, considering how strong-minded, how I am, I believe change requires change. You don't like something, then change it, do something. Like, I'm very much like that. And I know a lot of people, especially in my immediate circle, are not like that. And so I do struggle with having that understanding, right? But me having someone in my my space, and I know that they possibly struggle with expressing themselves,
Sure.
and whether they want to admit they have depression or anxiety. Like, I feel like maybe they're in a little denial and they don't want to deal with it. Like, how do I navigate a relationship like that?
Hmm.
I know
Well,
that's
I
a
think
tough question.
that is a tough question, but I think, I mean, generally speaking, I think is reminding yourself that you need to meet them where they're at and come from a curious standpoint rather than a judgmental standpoint, right? So if you have someone in your life that maybe isn't as self-aware as one would like,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Rather than coming off from a judgment perspective, is okay, be curious about that, right? Entice maybe conversations, or change your perspective about them, in that, okay, I'm trying to understand why they potentially have a hard time expressing
But see,
themselves.
I will
Mhm.
say, like, help me understand, like, but they're defensive. And what
Mm,
I don't like is, I feel I've always been me. Yes, I now have the title life coach. And this is family and friends, by the way. No one really specific.
mhm,
But
mhm,
um, I feel now they're like, well, don't life coach me, or, who do you think you are? I hate that. And it's like, I've actually always been this way. And I've always said these things or felt these things, like, and I'm always going to challenge you. It's in my nature to challenge that, because I do want to know. So I will say sometimes I find that hard
mhm,
to make leeway with that person because of that. Because even if I honestly come from a curious place, they're defensive and I
mhm.
don't get anywhere.
Yeah. So I wonder if maybe changing your approach towards that
Hmm.
individual, right, is meeting them where they're at. So maybe,
Hmm.
okay, I want to challenge it, but maybe knowing that you've tried to challenge it in a specific way isn't working. So then I challenge you to change that way, right?
Hmm.
Does that
Hmm.
make sense? So, okay, I
Yeah.
want to challenge them. So, okay, so how do I, Don, then reset myself to challenge them differently, right? And so that it won't come up, because here's the deal: the people that are closest to you are the ones that are probably going to challenge you more and maybe
Hmm.
resist more, right? Because they know that what you do is support others through their journey.
Hmm.
So the
Hmm.
last thing they want, and they don't need someone to do that for them, because if they did, then they would seek out the support. So think of it from that perspective, if you can. I
True.
know it could be
True.
hard.
Yeah. And it is safe to say that mental health is a it is a chemical imbalance.
Absolutely. There's all sorts of things that play to our mental health. And if you do have a condition that is clinically diagnosable, then it could be for various reasons, right? And all of it, there could be, with, for example, depression, there is a chemical imbalance going on, plus whatever contributing factors attributed to that. If it's your environment, or if it's the people are in your environment itself, if there's trauma, All sorts of things can contribute to that. And this is why it's at times people need medication to support you
Mhm.
with that process, and I know I'm not a pill pusher. I'm not trying to suggest that for
Mhm.
everyone, but generally speaking, sometimes people's condition is so severe that they need a little bit more than
Yeah.
these sessions, the life coaching, the mentoring, the whatever it is that they're seeking. Hmm.
Yeah, so I think what we're both saying, today, and the breakaway tip that I would like to, offer is, I know it's hard, but just take assessment, right? Like, take inventory, figure out what it is that's triggering, if it's a person, an environment, a feeling. Like, I just try to pay attention to those things to help yourself. Because, like I said, I know most people don't have the access to therapy. And, I never, a couple times went to therapy, but not for my childhood that I should.
Hmm.
But I've always challenged myself and questioned myself, right? Like, I always wanted to know why. Like, that's just something,
Hmm.
I've always been. So I would, start with that, and then, see where that can take you. But like Claudia said, there is life coaching, which should be much cheaper than therapy. um, Having conversations like this, breakaway with Dawn and friends. Like, I know that I love meeting up with the girlfriends and bouncing off of each other and just releasing. I
Yes.
love dancing. Like, dancing is like, oh, yeah,
Mhm.
in a perfect world, I'd be a dancer. Okay. So I love dancing. So that's a way that I can release. Right.
Yes.
And singing. And maybe one day I would bless the audience with my singing, because I do have some talents there. My family would disagree, but I enjoy it. But I feel, find ways to laugh more, and things that
Right.
make you happy, and find those things that, because they're there. You just have to want it. Honestly, you'll have to want it, because I can't help no one that doesn't want to be helped.
Mhm.
And for me, I'm a firm believer in, I only help those that are willing to help themselves, because I am not going to try more than you. I am not going to do more than you. I'm very firm but soft in my approach. And I
Right.
take pride in that. So, I mean, I urge you to seek that within first,
Right.
and then go from there.
Absolutely. Wow. Well said, Don.
Thank you, Claudia.
Yes.
um, Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I hope, this really has helped someone. And, oh, well, I was going to say, but now my thoughts are everywhere. I want to say so much, but there's so much to say. So, um, but I just, be kinder to yourself is what I wanted to say, right? I think we're so hard on ourselves. And I think that people need to remember to give yourself the grace and kindness that you would give to someone else.
Right.
And I think people with mental health are very hard on themselves, right? So maybe I'm wrong. I'm just guessing, but give that grace and kindness to yourself before you give it to someone else.
Absolutely. And keep bringing, be in touch with that need that you have, that emotional need that you have. And
Mhm.
mental health we want to remove the negative stigma around that. There is nothing
Yes.
wrong. We all have a right to a safe space to speak to someone who's going to be, you know, open to hearing us with any judgment. Free judgment zone is what I like to call it.
Yes,
So,
and that's what I wanted to say. Thank you for saying that, because I did want to get across that it's okay to feel. It's
mhm,
okay to have a day where you're sad, a day that you're mad, a day that you're I mean, it's okay to be up and down with your feelings, let yourself feel, and then, go from there. Like, I did want to say that. Thank you. It's okay, because I believe me, as happy as I am, I have my days, and they're like, "What's wrong with you?" I don't know, but I'm going to let myself feel. It's okay. Okay. I'm going to let myself feel. So just get out of my way. So it's okay to feel. Don't be, and it's okay to take moment by moment. Do you know what I
mhm,
mean? Like, it's for everyone, it could be a day at a time, a step at a time, but it truly is okay to take life moment by moment.
absolutely.
So, on that note, we'll end this conversation, and hope that this was a benefit to you. And until next time, be kind to yourself. Give yourself that grace. Bye.